The airport was full of people. Everyone was rushing to catch their flight. Among the crowd, two siblings walked quietly. One was a young man named Marcus. The other was his younger sister Zoe. They were dressed neatly and carried a small black bag. Zoe held the bag close to her heart. Inside was something very special, a necklace that once belonged to their mother. She had passed away just 6 months ago. This trip was important. Their mother always wanted them to see the world, and now they were doing it for her. "Are you okay?" Marcus asked softly. Zoe nodded. "I just wish Mom was here." Marcus smiled and put his hand on her shoulder. "She is. In here." He pointed to his heart. They reached the gate and showed their tickets, first class. Their mother had saved money for this gift, a first-class trip for both of them. It was her final surprise, sent through a letter Marcus had found after her funeral. They boarded the plane and took their seats. Everything was quiet. The plane smelled clean. The seats were big and soft. Zoe looked out the window and smiled. "This is nice," she said. But then something changed. A flight attendant walked down the aisle. Her name was Miss Karen. She had blonde hair, red lipstick, and a cold smile. When she saw Marcus and Zoe, her face changed. Her eyes narrowed. She walked over quickly. "Excuse me, are you sure you're in the right seats?" she asked in a sharp voice. Marcus politely replied, "Yes, ma'am. These are our tickets." He showed her the passes. She looked at them, then at him. She didn't smile. "These seats are expensive, you know." Zoe's hands tightened on the small bag. "We know," Marcus said. "We paid for them." The flight attendant looked around, then leaned closer. "You people usually sit in the back." Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" But Miss Karen didn't answer. She turned and walked away. Other passengers were watching. Some looked uncomfortable. A man in a business suit frowned, but said nothing. A woman whispered to her husband. That wasn't right. A few minutes later, Miss Karen came back. She had 2 security guards with her. "These passengers are causing a problem," she said quickly. "They refuse to move." "That's not true," Zoe cried. "We just sat down. We showed our tickets." The guards looked confused. One of them asked to see the tickets again. Marcus gave them. They looked fine. Everything matched. Still, Miss Karen insisted. They were rude. "They don't belong here." The guards hesitated, but then nodded. "Sorry, sir. Please come with us." Marcus looked at his sister. Zoe's eyes were full of tears. "We didn't do anything wrong," Marcus said, but he stood up. He held Zoe's hand. They walked out of the plane slowly, their heads held high. The other passengers were silent. Some looked away in shame. The door closed behind them. For a moment, there was silence on the plane. Then, footsteps. A tall man in a dark blue suit entered the plane. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. He looked like someone important. A few crew members stood up straight when they saw him. Miss Karen froze. She smiled quickly. "Oh, hello, sir. We weren't expecting you." The man didn't smile. He looked at the empty seats where Marcus and Zoe had been. "Who was sitting here?" he asked quietly. Miss Karen replied too fast. "Oh, just a couple who didn't belong. They were loud, causing trouble. I had to ask security to remove them." The man raised one eyebrow. "I see." He looked around the cabin. Everyone was silent. Some passengers looked away. Others stared at him, as if they were waiting for something. Then the man said something that made Miss Karen's face go pale. "Those 2 young people," he said, "they are very special guests." Miss Karen blinked. I didn't know." The man took out his phone and called someone. His voice was calm, but strong. "Find them," he said. "Bring them to me. Now." Miss Karen stepped back. The other flight attendants were whispering now. One of them said quietly, "He's the CEO of the airline." Miss Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out. Back in the airport lounge, Marcus and Zoe sat on a bench. Zoe wiped her tears. Marcus sat straight, trying to stay strong. "We'll be okay," he said. "We always are." Suddenly, a man in a suit appeared in front of them. "You must be Marcus and Zoe," he said. They looked up, confused. I'm here to fix what went wrong, the man said. He gave a warm smile. I'm the CEO of this airline. The man standing in front of Marcus and Zoe was tall, with gray at his temples and kind eyes. He looked powerful, but calm. His voice was soft, yet full of authority. My name is Mr. Daniels, he said. I'm the CEO of this airline. Marcus and Zoe stared at him, confused. CEO? Marcus asked, why are you here? Mr. Daniels looked around the lounge and then sat down beside them. I was on that flight, he said. I saw everything. I watched the way you were treated, and I didn't like it. Zoe looked down at her hands. She was still holding the small black bag with her mother's necklace. We didn't do anything wrong, she whispered. We were just sitting there. I know, Mr. Daniels said gently. You didn't deserve that. Marcus looked at him with careful eyes. What do you want from us? Mr. Daniels smiled. Nothing. I want to help you. He stood up and offered his hand. Come with me. I want to show you something. They walked down a quiet hallway, away from the noisy crowd. Mr. Daniels led them into a private room with a large screen on the wall. This is our security office, he explained. Every plane has cameras. We keep footage for safety. A young woman was sitting at a desk. She stood up when Mr. Daniels entered. Sir? Play the footage from flight 327, he said. From boarding to takeoff. The screen lit up. Marcus and Zoe saw themselves entering the plane. They saw how polite they were, how calm, how quiet. Then Miss Karen entered the screen. Her face twisted into a rude smile. Her tone changed when she spoke to them. Her words were clear. You people usually sit in the back. Zoe flinched watching it again. The security woman paused the video. Shall I delete this, sir? She asked quietly. Mr. Daniels shook his head. No, this needs to be seen. He turned to Marcus and Zoe. I want to apologize. On behalf of the whole airline. This should never happen to anyone. Zoe's eyes filled with tears again. But this time they were different. They weren't tears of fear. They were tears of relief. Marcus crossed his arms. What will you do about it? Mr. Daniels gave a slight smile. I have a plan. But first, let's get you back on a flight. You deserve better. Miss Karen was back in the crew room, sipping coffee and laughing with another flight attendant. Did you see their faces? She said. Like they were VIPs or something. The other attendant didn't laugh. She looked nervous. I heard the CEO was on board. Miss Karen stopped smiling. What? I think I saw him, the other woman said. Tall man. Gray hair. He was in first class. Miss Karen's face went white. No, she said slowly. That's not possible. He never flies commercial. But she was wrong. Later that afternoon, a black luxury car arrived at the airport gate. Marcus and Zoe stepped out, dressed in fresh clothes. A chauffeur opened the door for them. A red carpet was rolled out to a private jet. Zoe whispered, Is this really happening? Marcus nodded slowly, still in shock. I guess dreams come true. Mr. Daniels greeted them at the stairs. Welcome back, he said warmly. This flight is just for you. They walked inside. It wasn't a normal plane. It was beautiful. White leather seats, gold lights, soft music, and food waiting on silver trays. Zoe couldn't stop looking around. This is what flying should feel like, she said. Marcus sat down slowly, still holding on to his careful trust. Why are you doing this for us? He asked. Mr. Daniels sat across from him. I have a son. He's your age. What happened to you? It could have happened to him. He paused, then added, when people do the wrong thing, and no one speaks up, the wrong thing becomes normal. Zoe looked at him. Are you going to fire her? Mr. Daniels looked away for a moment. That depends. On what? Marcus asked. On whether she learns from her mistake, Mr. Daniels replied. I don't just want to punish people, I want them to change. Back at the airline headquarters, Miss Karen was called into a meeting. She looked nervous as she stepped into the office. Mr. Daniels sat at the head of the table. The video screen behind him was paused, showing her speaking to Marcus and Zoe. She tried to smile. Sir, I think this is a misunderstanding. He didn't smile back. Watch, he said. He pressed play. The room was silent except for her voice in the video, accusing the siblings without reason. When the clip ended, Mr. Daniels leaned forward. "This is not how we treat guests," he said quietly. "And this is not who we are as a company." Miss Karen's voice shook. I didn't mean anything bad. I just thought." "You thought wrong," Mr. Daniels interrupted. "You will take some time off, and you will attend a training course. You will write a letter of apology. And if you return, you will be watched." Miss Karen lowered her head. "Yes, sir." Meanwhile, the flight with Marcus and Zoe landed in New York. They stepped out onto a red carpet. Cameras flashed. Reporters were waiting. "What's happening?" Zoe asked. Mr. Daniels whispered, "You're not just passengers anymore. You're symbols of change." A reporter shouted, "How does it feel to be treated this way now?" Marcus paused. He looked at his sister, then back at the crowd. "It feels right," he said. "But we didn't want special treatment. We just wanted fair treatment." The crowd clapped. Zoe added softly, "We just want people to see us, the way our moms saw us, with love." Back at the CEO's office, Mr. Daniels sat at his desk and looked at a photo of his family. He picked up the phone and said to his assistant, "Start a scholarship program. Name it after Marcus and Zoe's mother, and find out what they want to do with their future." The assistant nodded. "Yes, sir." Mr. Daniels smiled quietly. The next morning, Marcus and Zoe woke up in a beautiful hotel suite in New York. The beds were soft, the room was bright, and breakfast had already been delivered. For a moment, it felt like a dream. Zoe sat by the window, holding her mother's necklace in her hand. "Do you think she'd be proud of us?" she asked quietly. Marcus didn't answer right away. He looked out the window at the city skyline. "She always believed in us," he said, "even when the world didn't." They sat in silence for a moment. Then the phone rang. Zoe jumped a little. Marcus picked it up. "Hello." "Good morning," said a calm voice on the other side. "This is Mr. Daniels. I'd like to meet you in the lounge downstairs in 30 minutes. There's something I want you to see." They got dressed quickly and headed downstairs. Mr. Daniels was already waiting, sitting in a quiet area with a laptop open. He smiled when he saw them. "Come sit," he said warmly. "I've been busy." Zoe tilted her head. "Busy with what?" Mr. Daniels turned the laptop toward them. On the screen was a folder full of video clips, emails, and voice messages. "I've been doing a little digging," he said. "What happened on the flight wasn't just one bad moment. It was part of a bigger problem." He clicked on one video. It showed Miss Karen from 6 months ago, arguing with an elderly couple who was speaking Spanish. She said they smelled funny. Mr. Daniels explained. She moved them to the back, even though they had first-class tickets. Zoe's eyes went wide. "That's awful." Mr. Daniels nodded. "That's not all." He played another clip, this time a recording from an intern who had reported Miss Karen for saying rude things about passengers behind their backs. "No one took her seriously," he said. "That intern quit the job after 2 weeks." Marcus clenched his fists. "So this has been going on for a long time?" "Yes," Mr. Daniels said, "but no one did anything." He paused the video. "Until now." Later that day, Mr. Daniels called a special company meeting. All top staff, managers, and flight supervisors were invited. The room was large and full of important people. Marcus and Zoe sat near the front. Mr. Daniels stood at the podium, calm but serious. "I want to tell you a story," he began, "about 2 siblings who boarded one of our planes last week." He told the whole room everything that happened, about the unfair treatment, about the quiet courage Marcus and Zoe showed, and about the pain they carried with them, the loss of their mother, the promise they made, and the necklace Zoe never let go of. They were not loud. They did not fight. They did not shout. But they were disrespected. Then he looked straight at the crowd, and they were not the first. The room was silent. He clicked the remote, and the big screen behind him lit up with video footage, clip after clip of Miss Karen's past behavior. Gasps filled the room. Some people looked shocked. Some looked ashamed. Mr. Daniels turned to face them all. "This ends today," he said firmly. "From now on, we do things differently." We don't just fly people. We carry their hearts, their pain, their dreams. And we must protect that. He walked over to Marcus and Zoe. These two young people are the reason we are changing. They showed more grace in one moment than some of us show in a lifetime. He handed them both a plaque, gold letters on a black frame. Champions of change, Marcus and Zoe. The whole room stood up and clapped. Zoe had tears in her eyes. Marcus held her hand and whispered, "Mom would really be proud now." Back at the airport, Miss Karen stood in a small office with the HR manager. Her face was red. She had been suspended and asked to come in for an investigation. She was angry. "This is unfair. I've been with this airline for years," she shouted. The HR manager stayed calm. "And in those years, you caused pain to people who trusted us." Miss Karen sat down, tired now. "They embarrassed me. In front of everyone." "No," the HR manager said gently. "You embarrassed yourself." A letter was placed in front of her. Mandatory apology letter. Cultural sensitivity course. Final warning. If she refused, she'd lose her job. Miss Karen stared at the paper. For the first time, she didn't have anything to say. Back at the hotel, Mr. Daniels invited Marcus and Zoe to dinner. They sat on a rooftop restaurant under soft lights, with a view of the city below. "I want to ask you something," he said. "What do you both want to do in life?" Marcus looked surprised. "No one's really asked us that before." Zoe smiled. "I want to help people. I want to make sure no one feels small." Marcus nodded. "And I want to build something. A business maybe. Something honest." Mr. Daniels leaned back in his chair. "How about you both join our new leadership program?" he offered. "Learn from the best, travel, train, speak. You'll help shape the future of this company." Zoe gasped. "Us?" Mr. Daniels smiled. "Why not you? You've already changed so much, just by being yourselves." Marcus reached across the table and shook his hand. "Thank you," he said. "We won't let you down." That night, Zoe placed her mother's necklace on the nightstand and whispered, "We're doing it, Mom. Just like you said. We're standing tall." Outside the window, the city lights blinked softly. And somewhere, change was already in the air. A week had passed since Marcus and Zoe were removed from their flight. But now, things were different. Their story had gone viral, shared on news channels, websites, and social media. People everywhere were talking about how they were treated and how they stayed calm and strong. Some called them heroes. But Marcus and Zoe didn't feel like heroes. They were just two kids trying to follow their mother's wish. That morning, they received a message from Mr. Daniels. "Meet me at gate 12, 11 o'clock am sharp. No questions. Dress comfortably." They arrived right on time. Marcus wore a clean white shirt. Zoe wore a light blue dress, the same one she wore the day of the flight. She had pinned her mother's necklace close to her heart again. When they reached gate 12, something surprised them. There was no crowd, no passengers, no announcements. Only a private plane waiting on the runway. Mr. Daniels stood near it with a warm smile. "Welcome back," he said. "Today is a very special day." Zoe smiled nervously. "What's going on?" Mr. Daniels opened the door to the plane. "Come inside and find out." The inside of the plane was like a dream. There were beautiful white and gold decorations, soft music playing, and the smell of fresh flowers in the air. But most importantly, there were guests. In the seats were people from different backgrounds, cultures, and countries. Some wore traditional clothes, some wore suits, and some were in uniforms. Everyone smiled when Marcus and Zoe stepped in. Mr. Daniels spoke loudly so everyone could hear. "This flight is called The Journey of Respect, and our two special guests, Marcus and Zoe, will be flying with us as our ambassadors of change." Zoe's eyes widened. "Ambassadors?" Marcus asked. "What does that mean?" "It means you're leading something bigger than just one flight," Mr. Daniels said. "This is the first of many flights that will celebrate diversity, kindness, and equal treatment." He pointed to a small plaque on the wall beside the door. "Respect takes flight. In honor of Marcus and Zoe's mother." Zoe gasped. Her hands flew to her chest. She read the words again and again. "She's really flying with us," she whispered. Marcus blinked quickly, holding back tears. "Thank you," he said. As the plane took off, a documentary began playing on the screens, showing the story of Marcus and Zoe, their background, their quiet bravery, and their mother's final wish. Every passenger watched in silence. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Others nodded with deep respect. Then, a soft voice came from the front speaker. It was Mr. Daniels again. "We're not just traveling today, we're moving forward. Every person on this plane comes from a different walk of life. But here, we sit together, as equals." He handed the microphone to Marcus. Marcus stood up slowly. His voice was unsure at first, but strong. "My sister and I were judged because of how we looked. That pain, it's real, but it doesn't have to be the end of the story." He looked at Zoe, then at the crowd. "We believe respect is not something you ask for. It's something you give every single time." The plane burst into applause. Zoe stood beside him. "We don't want pity," she said gently. "We want progress." After the flight landed in Washington, D.C., another surprise was waiting. They were invited to speak at a youth leadership conference. Hundreds of students from across the country were there. The room buzzed with energy. Cameras were set up. Reporters waited. Marcus stood backstage, nervous. Zoe touched his arm. "You don't have to be perfect. Just be real." He nodded. When they walked onto the stage, the crowd cheered. Zoe began. "Our mom always said, 'How you treat others says more about you than them.' We learned that lesson the hard way." Marcus continued, "But we also learned that one voice can start a wave, and sometimes the quietest voice is the strongest." After the speech, students surrounded them. "You inspired me. I've been treated unfairly too. Thank you for standing up. Can I take a picture with you?" It didn't feel real, but it was happening. They weren't just passengers anymore. They were leaders. Later that evening, back in the hotel, they sat with Mr. Daniels again. He handed them 2 envelopes. Marcus opened his first. It was a full scholarship letter for a business leadership program in New York. Zoe opened hers. It was a scholarship for social justice studies at a top university. She covered her mouth. "I don't know what to say." Mr. Daniels smiled. "You've already said it. Now it's time to live it." Then he added, "There's one more thing." He placed a small box on the table. Zoe opened it slowly. Inside was a small pin, a silver feather with gold edges. "What is this?" she asked. Mr. Daniels leaned forward. "This is our highest honor. It's only given to people who remind us what it means to fly, not with wings, but with heart." Zoe clutched it tightly. As the night ended, Marcus and Zoe stood outside on the hotel rooftop again. Below them, the city lights blinked. They looked up at the stars. "I used to think people like us didn't get chances like this," Marcus said. Zoe nodded. "But maybe the world is changing." He looked at her. "Or maybe we're the ones changing it." They both smiled. The wind was soft. The night was quiet. But inside their hearts, something loud was growing. Hope. Miss Karen sat alone in her small apartment. The lights were off. Her phone was silent. The internet was full of angry comments about her. Racist flight attendant. She should be fired. Disgrace to the airline. She had read them all. Each word felt like a stone on her chest. She had made a mistake. No, more than one. And now, the world had seen it. Miss Karen hadn't left her apartment in days. She was suspended from work. Her friends had stopped calling. Her neighbors avoided her. The worst part? She couldn't stop seeing their faces. Marcus, Zoe, 2 siblings who didn't fight back, who didn't raise their voice. They had just sat there, with quiet pain in their eyes. Why had she done it? Why had she said those things? At the time, she didn't think twice. She thought she was just doing her job, but now she understood. She had judged them, without reason, without care. And now she felt ashamed. That morning, a letter came in the mail. It was from the airline. Mandatory Cultural Awareness Training. Final notice. attend the full course, complete the reflection paper, or face permanent dismissal. Miss Karen stared at the paper. She didn't want to go. But a voice inside her said, maybe it's time to listen, not just talk. A few days later, she walked into the training room. There were 12 other staff members there, some old, some new. Everyone looked serious. A woman stood at the front. Her name was Dr. Lin. She had kind eyes, but a firm voice. We are not here to shame anyone, she said. We are here to understand how our words, our tone, our silence, even our body language can cause harm. She played videos, told stories, and asked questions that made everyone think. Have you ever felt invisible? She asked. Miss Karen didn't answer out loud, but her heart whispered, now I do. The next few days were hard. She had to watch herself in video clips, how she treated Marcus and Zoe, how she spoke to other passengers in the past. She had to listen to real stories from people who had been hurt, ignored, or mistreated. And for the first time, she didn't try to defend herself. She listened, and something began to change. On the last day of training, everyone was asked to write a reflection letter. Why did you act the way you did? What will you do differently now? Miss Karen sat with a pen in her hand for a long time. Then slowly, she began to write. To Marcus and Zoe, I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know that I was wrong. I judged you based on my fears and ignorance. I saw your skin before I saw your hearts. You were quiet. You were kind. And I was not. I'm sorry, truly. I used to think I was just doing my job. But now I understand. Doing your job does not mean forgetting your humanity. Watching how you handled everything with calm, with grace, with strength. It made me realize how small I had become. I am learning now. I am listening. I am changing. Thank you for waking me up. Karen. She submitted the letter to Mr. Daniels. He read it quietly. Then he looked at her. Do you mean this? Miss Karen nodded. Yes, sir. I don't want a second chance to protect my job. I want a second chance to do the right thing. Mr. Daniels studied her face. And for the first time, she looked honest. 12 people sent in complaints about you over the last 2 years, he said. I almost let you go. I would have deserved it, she replied softly. But, he paused, we don't grow by throwing people away. We grow by helping them become better. He handed her a small card. Probation return. Supervised flight crew only. One last chance, he said. Earn it. Her first flight back was quiet. She didn't joke like she used to. She didn't smile too quickly. She listened. She waited. She helped an elderly woman with her bag. She knelt beside a child who was crying. She greeted each person with a new kind of voice, gentler, real. But something was missing. Closure. A month later, she saw their names on the guest list. Marcus and Zoe. They were flying again, as ambassadors, as guest speakers for the airline's youth program. Miss Karen's hands shook when she saw the list. Should she talk to them? Should she say nothing? Her heart raced. When the day came, she stood near the boarding gate as they approached. Marcus saw her first. He paused. His eyes narrowed for a moment. Zoe stepped beside him, quiet and unsure. Miss Karen took a deep breath and walked over. She stood in front of them, not proud, not defensive, just open. I'm not here to make excuses, she said quietly. I just want to say one thing. Thank you. They looked surprised. She held out a folded note. I wrote this during training. You don't have to read it. But it's yours. Zoe slowly took the letter. There was a long pause. Marcus looked at her closely. Did you really change? I'm still changing, Miss Karen replied. But I started because of you. Zoe looked at Marcus, then back at Karen. She didn't smile, but she nodded. Okay, Zoe said softly. Let's all keep changing. As they boarded the plane, something felt lighter. Not perfect, but better. Miss Karen watched them walk down the aisle, hand in hand, strong as ever. This time, she didn't see 2 passengers. She saw 2 leaders. 2 lights. And maybe, A small piece of that light had touched her too. It had been 3 months since Marcus and Zoe stood on the stage, sharing their story with the world. 3 months since the world finally listened. Since then, their lives had changed completely. They had traveled to 5 countries, spoken at schools, events, and airports. They met children, teachers, pilots, and even presidents. Everyone wanted to hear from the siblings who stayed kind in the face of cruelty. But no matter how far they traveled, Marcus and Zoe stayed grounded. They remembered where it all started, a broken moment on a plane, with a single seat that said, "You don't belong here." Now they were helping others claim their seat, in the world, in life, in dreams. Their next stop was South Africa. Mr. Daniels had arranged a special visit to a school outside of Cape Town, a place that had once been divided by race, history, and pain. Now, it was rebuilding through education, love, and honesty. The school was called Rise Academy. As Marcus and Zoe stepped off the plane, they were welcomed by music, dancing, and dozens of students holding signs. "Welcome, Marcus and Zoe. You inspire us. Respect has no border." Zoe's eyes filled with tears. This is so much bigger than us," she whispered. Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. And it always was. Inside the school, they gave a talk. The room was full, not just with students, but with their parents, teachers, and local leaders. Marcus began. "When someone tells you that you don't belong, it hurts. It breaks something inside you. But I've learned something. You can still stand, even if your heart is shaking." Zoe added softly, "And when you stand, others rise too." They spoke about dignity, about listening, about being strong without being cruel. They talked about their mother and how love was their anchor. After their talk, a small girl named Lyra raised her hand. She was only 10. Her eyes were wide and bright. "Do you think someone like me can change the world too?" she asked shyly. Zoe knelt beside her. "You already are. The moment you speak up, the world listens, even if it's just one person at a time." That night, back in their hotel, they sat by the window looking at the stars. Marcus scrolled through his messages. There were thousands of new ones every week. But one message stood out. It was from a boy named Ali in Jordan. "I showed your story to my father. He never thought people would care about someone like him. But now he says he wants to open a small cafe again. Thank you." Zoe smiled. "People we've never even met. They're feeling brave." Marcus nodded. "We didn't just start a story. We started a movement." Back in New York, Mr. Daniels had been working on something big, something that could change the future of the airline industry forever. It was called Wings of Change, a global training and youth program. And it had Marcus and Zoe's name on the front page. The program would be mandatory for every new flight attendant and staff member across 60 countries. It included videos of Marcus and Zoe's story, real voices from passengers who faced discrimination, live classes on kindness, cultural understanding, and emotional care, a new message on every boarding pass. "You are welcome here, always." But that wasn't all. Mr. Daniels had another surprise. He called a global online press conference. Millions watched from around the world. He stood in front of the camera with Marcus and Zoe beside him. "Today," he said, "we launch a new kind of sky, one where kindness is policy, and respect is not a request, it's a promise." Then he looked at the siblings. "And today, I'm proud to announce the Marcus and Zoe Foundation for Equal Travel, a program that gives scholarships and flight opportunities to children from underprivileged backgrounds, so they too can see the world without fear." The world clapped. Zoe's hands covered her mouth. Marcus closed his eyes for a second. "Mom, we're doing it." The next few weeks were like a dream. Videos from Brazil, India, Kenya, Japan, and Canada came in, children learning about Marcus and Zoe, drawing their pictures, writing letters. One boy said, "I want to be like Marcus." He didn't yell, he stood tall. One girl said, "Zoe smiled even when she was hurt. That's the kind of strong I want to be." A school in the Philippines held a respect parade, carrying signs that said, "Be the Zoe in the room." stand like Marcus. And then, one day they got a letter from someone unexpected. It was from Miss Karen. She had been volunteering in local shelters, helping passengers with special needs, and working under strict supervision. Her letter was simple. Thank you for giving me a second chance. I will spend every day proving I deserved it. I may never undo the past, but I will protect others in the future. Zoe looked at the letter for a long time. Then she said softly, sometimes even the broken can learn to heal. The story of Marcus and Zoe was no longer just a story. It was a movement, a message, a mirror to the world saying, do better, be kind, see each other. From planes in the sky, to classrooms on the ground, from voices small and young, to hearts tired and old. Their story had traveled farther than any plane ever could. But for Marcus and Zoe, this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The air was cool that morning. Zoe stood on the hill behind their new home, looking at the sky. She wore her mother's necklace, now faded but full of memory. Behind her, Marcus was on a video call with Mr. Daniels, finalizing the launch of the second round of scholarships from the Marcus and Zoe Foundation. The world had changed so much, but their hearts were still the same. Quiet, steady, grateful. Later that day, they visited the cemetery, something they hadn't done in months. Their mother's grave sat under a willow tree. The wind gently moved its branches like waves in the sky. Zoe placed a bouquet of white lilies on the stone. Marcus knelt beside her. He pulled out a folded paper, worn at the edges. What's that? Zoe asked. Marcus smiled a little. It's the list, he said. The list. It was something their mom had written years ago, after their dad passed away. It had 3 dreams written on it, 3 promises she hoped they would fulfill, even after she was gone. Zoe had forgotten about it. Marcus read it out loud. 1. Travel the world together. 2. Help people who feel unseen. 3. Make the world a little softer. Zoe touched the paper gently. We did it, she whispered. We did all 3. Marcus nodded. We traveled. We stood up, and we stayed kind. A week later, they were invited to speak at the United Nations Youth Assembly in Geneva. It was the highest honor they had received yet. A global platform, with leaders from over 100 countries. Marcus and Zoe stood in front of a hall filled with presidents, prime ministers, activists, and young dreamers. This time, there were no nerves, just truth. Zoe stepped forward. My name is Zoe, and 3 years ago, I was told, without words, that I wasn't welcome on a plane. But today, I know that story didn't end with pain. It started something. Marcus stood beside her. And I'm Marcus. I used to think staying silent was the safest choice, but now I know. Silence helps the wrong side win. So I speak. Their voices rose together. We stand for the child in every country who is judged before they are known. For the quiet ones. For the brave ones. For the ones still waiting to be seen. The room stood in applause. But the moment that touched them most came after the speech. A young girl from Ukraine walked up to them. Her English was broken, but her voice was clear. Before I saw you, I was afraid to speak in class. Now, I raise my hand. A boy from Mexico added, people used to laugh at my accent, but now I speak louder. A refugee girl from Syria said, you reminded me that being soft does not mean being weak. Back home, a documentary team followed Marcus and Zoe for 2 weeks, capturing their journey, from their mother's old apartment to the halls of global leadership. The final scene of the film showed the 2 siblings walking along the runway where they had first been removed. This time, no one stopped them. This time, their names were painted on the side of the plane. Respect takes flight. The Marcus and Zoe legacy jet. They paused beside it, touched the metal. It felt cold, but powerful. A symbol. Zoe looked up. Funny, she said. It started with someone pushing us out of a seat. Marcus smiled. Now we're giving thousands of others a seat. Months passed. The program grew. Children from over 70 countries received flight scholarships, education, and mentorship. A boy from Nigeria, a girl from Japan, and a deaf student from Poland all flew on planes for the first time because of the foundation. The airline industry shifted slowly but surely. More kindness, more understanding, fewer complaints, more listening. And on every flight, tucked into the seat pocket, was a small card. You are seen. You are valued. You belong here. Marcus and Zoe. One night, years later, Zoe sat on the same rooftop they used to visit. The stars were out. Marcus sat beside her, holding a warm cup of tea. I still miss her, Zoe whispered. I do too, Marcus said. But I think, if she could see us now, she'd smile. Zoe leaned her head on his shoulder. She'd say we kept our promise. Marcus nodded slowly, and she'd probably say something like, now teach others how to keep theirs. They laughed softly. Then they looked at the sky. A plane passed above them, just a silver line in the darkness, moving forward. Quiet, brave, full of stories, just like them. And so, the story ends, not with anger, not with revenge, but with a promise. To make room for others, to be loud when it matters, and to never let kindness go quiet, because in a world full of noise, sometimes the softest voices change the world the most.